Thank you for staying with us here on the program. We're still looking at President Jonathan's October 1st Independence Day address to the nation. Well, we move on away from confab to the issue of electoral process and election. Let me allow you listen to him first, then we'll talk about it. This is what President said on election and electoral process.
Our administration has made a commitment to ensure that we build and sustain a democratic infrastructure anchored on free and fair elections. We will continue to ensure that the will of the electorate prevails, so that political leaders will be reminded that at all times that there is a day of reckoning when they have to go back to the people at the polls. Election days must not be days of violence and death.
You've heard him. Election day must not be a day of death. What are your views on that? Let me start with you, Chief Uwazuruike.
My morbid fear for politics all the years have been death, violence. Because I grew up in an era where we saw all those people killing themselves. We see thugs driving freely. So anything we can do to guarantee peace on election day, to guarantee freedom of movement, do it. It's better anything. It's better we prevent it than try to cure it after. Let me give you one example. In the 60s, we had very rough period in the West here. The point they called it the Wild West.
Wild West,
of course, in the North, we had an almighty premier who would decide whether you can do election or not. In the East, we also had a man who will also say, this is me. But then, that time, the federal government was more of being aloof while all those killings were going on. So anything the government can do, including deploying soldiers, policemen, customs, anything to maintain peace so that I can walk freely.
Do you agree with that, Senator Mamora?
Well, seriously, I don't think anything is too much to give to achieve peace, to achieve a fair process. And of course, don't forget, when I say process, because election itself is an event, but there's electoral process comprising of the pre-election, intra-election, and post-election phases. So I'm saying that, yes, but not as to disenfranchise one way, maybe through intimidation, or indiscriminate arrest of people. But everything has to be done as much as possible. And of course, it has to be all through. I want to commend, the administration, at least for what took place, Ondo, Ekiti, Osun. But what bothers me is that we had a senatorial district election in Minna. So what happened if that's just 1/3 of a state and it was inconclusive? So, I would want a process that is free and fair throughout and not selective.
Electoral process.
I'm bothered that we had free and fair process in all these other states that I had mentioned, but in one senatorial district election in Minna, it was inconclusive. What happened?
Electoral
process. Why was it difficult to police that senatorial district to ensure
success?
Yes, that's
how would you rate electoral process since the administration of President Jonathan?
Well, I will rate it in terms of the performance of INEC, as the election management body. I think it's been fairly.
You think we're out of the woods?
Not necessarily so. Not so. Don't forget, I told you it's a process comprising of the pre-election, intra-election, and post-election. Even post-election, how long does it take to resolve?
Chief Uwazuruike, on election issue, from what the president said, what's your take? Did he leave anything out?
No, I think so far, Mr. President has been fair to Nigerians. I think we have been given a free hand on election day. The electoral process has been able to throw up different winners instead of predetermined winners. Let me tell you, in 2003, Suddenly, PDP swept everywhere in the southwest, except Lagos. Most people didn't believe that PDP won. 4 years later, most of us did not believe that PDP won. But beginning with Yaradua, then to Jonathan, the process began to unravel. Now the litmus test is coming in Adamawa in the next 1 week. We want to see that kind of preventive measure.
Do you think there is an awareness in the electorate too about the process generally? Do you think the electorates, Nigerians, are getting aware that this will determine a lot about our future?
Oh yeah, I think they are. They're also beginning to believe that their votes are beginning to count. I know that, and I will give credit to some campaigners. They really worked hard. Nigerians are beginning to say, yes, it's possible.
All right. Sorry, I mean, there's one particular issue that I would like us to talk about before we go, and it's what the president said about insurgency. This is what he said, and we'll come back to discuss more.
Those waging war against our country ask that you lay down your arms and embrace peace. To those who have genuine grievances, I have found that Nigeria will listen to you if you bring your grievances to the table of dialogue. I urge every Nigerian to put aside political, sectional, or other parochial considerations and support wholeheartedly the efforts of the government and the military in checking this evil.
Just briefly, I want us to look at this very issue, and again, just to round up our conversation here. Let me start with Senator Mamora. From what the president said, and generally on this Independence Day speech, what do you make of President Jonathan's address?
Well, good in some areas, not too good in some areas. For example, talking about security, yes, which is very, very critical, to us at this stage. It's good. Mr. President has commended forces, particularly the security forces and particularly the armed forces, for what they have done so far, and particularly what they have been doing in the last few weeks. That we can see that they're doing more. They are really putting this insurgency into check and all that. Good, but I'm not too comfortable that no mention was made of the Chibok girls. At least I would expect Mr. President to give a word of succor, a word of comfort to the parents and families of these girls, and of course, which will show that where the President is demonstrating some passion, some concern, and all that. I think that's important. And again, I read Mr. President's. In terms of our food import that has gone down and all that, and then giant strides in the agricultural sector and all that. But I'm much more interested in what have really seen in terms of translation to the quality of life of the Nigerians, because we're talking of rebasing of the GDP to over $500 billion and all that. But what does it translate to in terms of reality
on the street?
Yes, the quality of life of the average Nigerian. It's very important to me. And of course, again, the Ebola virus containment, the Ebola disease, viral disease containment, I think with some bit of credit should be given to the Lagos State team, Governor Fashola.
Thank you. So let's just summarize, because the time is no more there now.
Well, let me start with Ebola. I will give credit to the federal government. Lagos State government is part of the federal government. And we have a minister for health. That minister coordinated very well. On daily basis, they were telling Nigerians. Governor Fashola has no power to command anybody at the airport. It's only the federal government can do that. On issue of insurgency, let me say this. It behoves on all of us to make sure that Nigeria is safe. Mr. President takes the lead. We must also give him support. I believe the insurgency is reducing because some governors suddenly have realized that the states being destroyed are their own homes.
All right. Unfortunately, this is how far we can go. I wish that we can go so far. A lot of people, gentlemen, are also part of the conversation. Some people are saying, showing the way forward. Dario Emmanuel says the way forward is to be sincere about a nation should be the leaders travel to develop what and fail to replicate what they see there. Akinde Aderibigbe say, I think our leaders should be more proactive in building people rather than stomach infrastructure system of politics. And a lot of people out there, Osiwe Ibagwe, well, your comments have been saying, of course, we're reading this and we're taking cognizance into all of these things that you have said. Thank you so much, Senator Mamora and Chief Uwazuruike, for joining us on the program tonight. On behalf of the team, I'm Shinwa Kimbale. Do join the conversation right after now on Twitter and send an email to us. Bye for now.